A video of a trans woman claiming to produce breast milk and then claiming to feed a baby with it is getting a lot of attention online. And it seems the general reaction from people on the right is shock that this is not possible, or that this is not milk, or that it's wrong. Now, whether or not you think it's wrong, that's entirely your opinion, right? It's up to you to decide the moral lines you adhere to. I'm not saying it's right. As to whether or not males can produce milk, not even a question. So let me break this down. There's a lot to go over here in terms of what's legal, the risks to the child, whether or not there could or would be intervention, and how you deal with this if you do find it morally wrong. The first thing we should address is the science question. Is this milk? Yes. Here's the story from the Post-Millennial. Transgender mother appears to feed newborn baby with milky substance he claims secreted from his nipples after taking hormones. Now, you can phrase it that way, but I don't think you need to. Induced lactation is a thing. It exists, and males can lactate. We know that. There are many males that lactate just because they do. Like some males do. It's rare. It's considered, I believe it's considered a disorder. Sometimes tumors can cause it. Hormonal imbalances can cause it. Or you can induce lactation in human mammals, be it male or female. Now, the milk produced by males is not the same as milk produced by females, but it is substantively the same thing. Now, there are a lot of questions about the hormonal components of that milk and whether or not it is safe for a baby to consume milk from males. We don't have a whole lot of research on that. But there are a lot of questions around this pertaining to morality, cultural norms and standards, and legality. And I think I want to go through this story and break it down for you. And then we'll talk about legality, morality, and yes, in fact, I do believe there is a small percentage chance that in the future, this could become illegal. Now, I know the left is going to immediately come out and make the argument that I'm saying that a person who produces milk isn't legally, like it's an anti-trans thing. No. Look, parents have been arrested for feeding their children atypical things. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I don't know. I'm just saying it happens. You can ascribe morality where you see fit. I'm taking the academic approach on this story. Parents who fed their children a raw fruit diet went to jail. They were feeding their kids. They were feeding their kids something that they ideologically believed the child should consume. The child became sick and died. The parents went to jail. That's where I'm saying this could come into effect. Just because a male can induce lactation does not mean that that milk is actually going to be substantive enough of a meal for the child, and in fact could contain hormones in improper balances and cause serious harm to the child. We don't know. If a vegan parent feeding their kid fruit, which is literal food, can go to prison, then yes, there is a reality that this person could as well. Just depends on what the state decides to do. Considering that this is an issue of transgender transition and things like that, I really doubt any politician, any DA is going to go after this individual unless we can see real harm befall this child, which I do have the stories to back it up. You do not get to hide behind LGBTQ issues to feed your child atypical things. If a baby needs to consume certain things and you do not give it those things or give it something else, you can be criminally charged. Again, I am not assigning morality or legality. I'm saying it has happened. And depending on jurisdiction, this person could go to prison for this. But I'll explain. All right. Post-Millennial writes, trans TikTok user Nominal Naomi, who announced on the viral video site that he had begun taking drugs for the purpose of inducing lactation, had posted a new video of himself caring for a baby and feeding that baby with a bottle filled with what he claims to be breast milk. Nominal Naomi referred to this as cow achievement and claimed to TikTok viewers that he was going to be a mother, that it was in the works. The thing I often see about the trans issues is that they take a relatively derisive view of femininity, like cow achievement. Perhaps there are females who call themselves cows. Typically, it's an insult, but whatever. You do you. Queer joy, said Nominal Naomi, showing pictures of an infant being fed the secretion from his male body. Look, you can call it trans male milk. Men can lactate. They can. Like as I mentioned, there are men who will start getting leaky nipples and go to the doctor and they'll say you have a hormone imbalance that's causing you to lactate. It happens to guys. It was only a few days ago that the Post-Millennial revealed motherhood plans of PhD student Nominal Naomi. Much as it turns out, to Nominal Naomi's dismay, in response to a report from the Post-Millennial, Nominal Naomi tweeted about his plans to nurse a baby where the baby came from is unclear. Okay, come on. Let's just slow down here. Post-Millennial. You can be morally opposed to this, and I think that's fair, but you got to unload the description of this. We know the baby was adopted. We know that males lactate. And it seems like because of the post-millennial writer's disgust and disagreement with this, Libby, of course, not surprised. Libby, I think it's fair to say that you find disgust in this, and I can understand that perspective. It's coming out in the writing. But, look, by all means, you write as you see fit. Just finished my morning pumping, Nominal Naomi said on Twitter, and I can confirm to you that it is indeed breast milk. I can cite peer-reviewed journal articles about lactation in trans women, but they might be too hard for you to read because your post-millennial is written at an elementary school level. Yeah, look, if you can't convey an idea to the average person, you can't convey the idea. If you need to use special language to convey an idea and people can't understand it, then you can't actually convey that idea. Because it's actually quite simple. I can convey it very simply for the average person. There are a few different hormones that can block testosterone and stimulate breast milk production. Women naturally produce these hormones when they become pregnant. Men can artificially induce lactation by consuming these hormones. Actually quite simple. Here we go. Let's read some more. There are some links. Nominal Naomi cites reports from medical libraries showing that men who believe themselves to be women have taken excessive amounts of drugs in the past to fuel lactation, despite not being female or mothers. The males cited in one article is advised to induce lactation despite also being prescribed clonazepam, zolpidem, and oral estradiol. Estradiol? To this regimen, drugs to induce lactation were added, notably domperidone, estradiol, and progesterone. I may be pronouncing it. Is it estradiol? These drugs were used to mimic pregnancy. The only reason for this course of action is vanity and narcissism, not the health of the child. Another article cited by Nominal Naomi states that breastfeeding in trans women has been greatly under-researched. And there, my friends, is the admission. This may result in criminal charges. I think it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. I am not saying there should be criminal charges. I am saying it is possible. Quote, despite the continuous growth of the transgender population, the article states, without giving any indication as to why a growing number of people would determine they would prefer to be the opposite sex, there remain several barriers to quality healthcare for these patients, including stigmatization, as well as a lack of provider knowledge and experience in treating this population. The use of language surrounding fertility and breastfeeding remains heterogendered, meaning that people who breastfeed are assumed to be straight and identify as women. This minimizes the experience of people outside of society's binary classification of gender. The use of misgendering language has a negative impact on mental health, self-esteem, and social identify of those who identify identity. Is that what it meant? Of those who identify as non-binary. Nominal Naomi cites another source, this time from a group that teamed up with the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, which believes that children can have the gender identity of eunuch. In a defense of this claim, cited authors who fetishize children without genitals. Creepy. Still another advocates for gender transition to be implemented in individuals at younger and younger ages, noting that this means reproductive rights of those who have intentionally, albeit before the age of consent, determined to remove their ability to have children naturally, etc., etc., etc. Naomi tweeted, yes, it is common for women who adopt children to induce lactation. It is. That's exactly what the Newman-Goldfarb protocol was designed for. I believe that is correct, yes. Women who adopt children will induce lactation so they can breastfeed those children. Breast milk is substantially better for babies, at least in my understanding, than formula. Although formula is a safe alternative for growing babies, breast milk contains hormones and other nutrients and enzymes that help the baby develop and become robust and strong. Formula does not have these things. One Twitter user noted, even if you think trans identity is valid, there needs to be a serious conversation about how trans women consistently get away with things that normal people would never get away with, ranging from illegal behavior to immoral behavior to straight up pedophilia, as seen above. Okay, well let's address this. I have this article from verywellfamily.com. The question of legality comes to mind. There's going to have to be some kind of adjudication on the issue, but simply put, if the breast milk produced by males is not is not producing nutrients, enzymes, and other materials in the appropriate quantities, and the baby befalls harm, you will likely go to prison. And a lot of people, I think, take issue with this. I've heard so many stories about parents who should not have been arrested, who get arrested because they were either dumb or sad things happened. To put it simply, a parent who is vegan, who genuinely believes they are giving their child the appropriate food, can go to jail. That's the crazy thing. And it has happened. And it has happened more than once. It has happened many, many times. So if you're a parent and you read something on the internet and decide this is what my child needs, and the child dies, they can and will lock you up. Now imagine you're a male who induces lactation. We don't know what's in the breast milk. There's not been long-term studies done on these things. Let's say that is the principal source of nutrition for your child and they die. I do not see a difference in you reading something online, taking drugs, and then giving a child breast milk that we don't know what it will do. To add to this, when you look at the overview of hormones in breast milk, you can see that there are a lot: prolactin, thyroid hormones, epidermal growth factor, beta endorphins, relaxin, erythropoietin. Is that how you're pronouncing it? Erythropoietin, cortisol. There are many. Leptin. And there are also many other hormones such as progesterone, insulin, estrogen, androgens, gastrin, adiponectin. I got it. Resistin and ghrelin. Is that how you pronounce it? These hormones may also influence the baby's growth and development, but scientists are still exploring how. So what they do say in this article, which is pointed out very simply, is that the hormones of the mother can be transferred into the milk. If a male is taking a bunch of hormones, if a male is taking spironolactone, can that pass through to the breast milk is an interesting question. Spironolactone suppresses testosterone in the body. This can cause very serious side effects for a baby. Babies should not be randomly receiving something like spironolactone. Now, I don't know that it will pass into the milk. I'm saying we don't know. And thus, there is a possibility that if the milk is not good for the baby because of the copious amounts of drugs and hormones being taken by the biological male, it could cause serious harm to that baby. Just because your body can produce milk doesn't mean it is befitting a child who has certain requirements to grow. I think I have the story. Here we go. Vegan mom gets life in prison for starvation, death of son. Now you see this and you're like, oh, she starved the kid. She had the kid on a raw vegan diet. Now, if it was a raw diet, kid would probably be fine. Nobody would care. A vegan woman convicted of murder in the malnutrition death of her young son was sentenced Monday to life in prison. Sheila O'Leary, 38, whose family followed a strict vegan diet, was convicted in June of 6 charges: first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and more. Her husband, Patrick O'Leary, remains in jail. The Cape Coral couple had their 2 children, who were also malnourished, investigators said. The 4th child had been returned to her biological father during an earlier malnutrition case in Virginia, court records show. That's it. She got first-degree murder for giving her children the wrong diet. Now, look, that's tough. I don't know where the government gets to come in and mandate what you give your kids. Imagine you didn't want to get your kid vaccinated for some particular disease or something, and the government came and arrested you saying that you were neglecting your child. Or imagine the kid got sick and died and they say that's murder because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. Parents are allowed to be dumb. And it's sad that kids may die from this, but I don't know how you deal with it. Can we really live in a world where the parents don't get to decide what their kids eat? At what point then can the government say they have to consume something? Therein lies the real risks. Outside of that, we do have this story, which I passed over as I was approaching the other story. A 2-year-old showed signs of puberty after he was exposed to his dad's testosterone gel. He developed pubic hair and his height was off the charts. They thought he was 4 or 5 years old because the testosterone was causing him to get big. While it is true that biological males can produce milk, as even Naomi mentions, long-term studies have not been done. So that's my warning. People have gone to prison for providing diets they got off the internet. Just because you read this online and induced lactation does not mean you're providing your child with adequate nutrition. And the hormones that pass through your body that you're taking could cause serious harm to this child. I do not know where this goes. But other than that, I can say this. For those that oppose it, short of passing laws, there's nothing you can really do about it because you won't know. The police aren't going to go into the homes of these people and figure out what they're doing to these kids. Is it probable cause worthy to say that a biological male is breastfeeding a child? There's no way you're going to get a court order for that. Unless, of course, legislation is passed saying male body milk is not sufficient for a child. And that's going to take scientific research. So the cultural and moral questions being raised here, I find, are very, very interesting as we enter this transhumanist future. I do not believe the likely outcome will be in favor of the transhumanists. I don't. I do believe we may head towards an AI metaverse reality where we don't become transhuman. We create digital personifications of ourselves that can fit whatever personality we want. You enter the virtual world, you plug in, and then you're the carrot you wanted to be your whole life. Oh no, rabbits, run. But altering our bodies, not entirely sure. But maybe in a long enough future, humans will eventually develop the technology to actually rapidly change themselves in real ways. Which brings me to a more interesting philosophical question pertaining to transhumanism. Right now, the concern people have is that a male can't become female. Human beings have mammary glands. Males are underdeveloped, and they typically don't develop. In rare occasions with hormonal imbalances, tumors, etc., men may naturally lactate. Wouldn't necessarily call it naturally, but it's not drug-induced. It's just, something happens to the body and they do. But many people have said, I guess the question is, I think Joe Rogan talked about this. If a person could walk into, let's say there's a big machine, and you could walk in and down to your DNA, it would alter you and make you from female to male or male to female. Would there be a problem then? It's an interesting question. The question seems to be right now that people are being told as males to surgically alter themselves, sterilize themselves, or in other ways cause harm to themselves. And they're not really women. And then within this ideology, there is males competing against females, and it's unfair. A new report from the NIH shows that transgendered individuals who are male still have an advantage even if they suppress testosterone. But what if a human being could, down to their smallest bit of DNA, actually become fully female? Then would there be an issue? I think most people would probably say no on a scientific ground, and a lot of people might say yes on a spiritual ground. You should be happy with who you are. But there's a big challenge then culturally. If we ever do develop that technology to rewrite DNA, and maybe they can do it with viruses, or maybe we get to advanced mRNA or mDNA manipulation, and someone undergoes a period of like 2 years of injections, which actually changes all their DNA and makes them biologically female, and then somehow reconfigures the cells in their body. I don't know, whatever. Let's say the technology gets invented, because I think humans can invent this technology. You wouldn't know. You would just see a female, and you wouldn't know if they were male or not male. I guess what I'm trying to get to is the only reason any of this is happening is because we isolated the hormones that actually cause lactation. We've isolated the hormones that make someone develop secondary male characteristics or female characteristics, and now we've started suppressing and inducing these developments in humans. Without the technology, there is no transgender affirming anything. There's just people who maybe wish something, but then don't say anything. But now that the technology exists, people are starting to embrace it. What happens when the technology advances beyond just crude surgeries and hormones, and we actually develop, say, the ability to rewrite DNA? We're there. We can rewrite DNA. Now, whether or not these gene therapies actually can become permanent, you might need, things like that. Those are challenges, but gene therapies exist. And we can use viruses and other things to genetically modify organisms. We're studying these things to remove defects that cause certain diseases. We want to cure someone who's not producing enough of a certain protein. So, maybe there's a protein missing in their body's breaking down. We want to fix that. What happens when we get to that point where you literally can be the carrot? or some facsimile of. It's going to be interesting in the future. And there will be very strong moral and legal consequences as the technology develops. Consider that. Whatever your opinion on any of this may be, I assume for most of you, it's probably disgust, and you're certainly entitled to feel that way. But the question of the legality, I think, will be interesting because this is not so simple as to say you're ideologically opposed or not. We're talking about the health of a baby. And maybe it's true. I think it's probably likely the baby will be fine. The baby is getting some kind of food. But the hormones that are in this, if this baby undergoes some kind of cancerous development or starts developing earlier or has androgen suppressed due to spironolactone or something like that, passing into the milk, I mean, this is going to be, there's going to be serious criminal ramifications for this. You can't give your baby drugs through some circuitous means. We'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.